was having a brainwashing, mind control ability over this defendant, and that they were able just to get him to say what they wanted. And if that's true, then why is this statement perfect? Why are there still some inconsistencies in it? Why would they do that? It doesn't make sense if you believe the defense theory. The other thing is, too, they want it both ways. They want you to believe that this defendant is so, and they call him handicapped, but he's got such a low IQ that he is practically just like putty in the hands of these police officers. Just, because think of it. No matter what situation you were in, to confess to the horrendous, to running down a boy, an 8-year-old boy, and dragging him back to his death, just think what pressure would be required to cause you to do that. Just think of that. And what they're telling you is that this person, because he has such a low IQ, was persuaded and coerced into doing it, yet the way he was able to give a statement that on the tape that you heard that had such good facts is because although he's so slow, he's easily suggestible, he's also so smart, he can pick up all this stuff while they're questioning and then spit it back out to you in a statement. So it's really, he's slow for one purpose, but he's very intelligent for another purpose. And they can't have it both ways because it doesn't make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, then it shows that this defendant is guilty. The second issue is, and I think it's one that's crossed your mind from the time you heard the confession, is if the law requires the state to prove that this defendant acted with premeditation and deliberation with the purpose of causing the death, him or an accomplice, even under the tape, how do we find that this defendant committed capital murder? Because what he says indicates that his involvement is relatively slight. Well, examine what his statement says. He ran the Moore boy down and brought him back. At the time he did that, Damien was already beating up one of the boys. And he brings him back. Now, he'll say somewhere in that statement, he'll say, well, that's when I saw what was happening, I left. But that's not true. It can't be. Because in his statement, he then proceeds to detail how the boy was cut in the face. He details how the boy was castrated. And he doesn't just say he castrated him. When they say, are you sure? He said, yes. And they said, well, how'd they do it? And he said, they got him down on his back. They were both on top of him. One of them was sitting on him. And then I saw the blood. Now, if his involvement was that he ran and chased the boy down and brought him back and then he took off, how was it he saw all those things? How was it that 3 weapons were used to inflict these injuries if there's only 2 people that are left there? And in talking about his involvement, an accomplice, he's guilty as an accomplice if he aids or agrees to aid in the participation of the offense, or aids or agrees another in the commission of the offense. It's with the purpose, and when you get back there and read the instructions, purpose is defined as consciously engaging in conduct of a certain nature. If he consciously engaged in conduct that involved him in this act, then he's guilty of capital murder if that's the result. See this picture? This is the Moore boy. This defendant, he won't look up, he won't look at you, but this defendant's actions, and you just think about it. If this defendant does not chase down Michael Moore, if he does not run through the woods and chase him down and bring him back, Michael Moore lived. Michael Moore gets to go home at night. His parents get to be with him. But because of this defendant's actions, because of what Jessie MISSKELLEY Jr. did and what he told you about in that tape statement, Michael Moore doesn't go home anymore. And because if he hadn't chased him down, if Michael Moore gets away, it's only a few hundred yards to the truck stop. And certainly Michael Moore is going to report what's happening. And if Michael Moore gets away, maybe the others decide that this isn't a good thing to engage in and they get out. Maybe it's just a kidnapping and a battery. Maybe they're just seriously hurt. But ladies and gentlemen, we'll never know. Because Jessie MISSKELLEY Jr. didn't let Michael Moore get away. He chased him down like an animal and brought him back. And as a result of his action, Michael Moore's dead, Stevie Branch is dead, Chris Byers is dead. And there's no getting around it. And you can cut it any way you want to. You can sit there and look over it. But when you read that tape, or listen to that tape, and look and go over this evidence, the actions of this defendant certainly meet the acts of an accomplice in aiding or agreeing to aid or assisting in the commission of a capital murder. And for goodness sakes, in a case like this, I know there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of attention on it, and it's a great responsibility to go back there because the person you've looked at for 2 weeks looks young, and it's easy to empathize and sympathize with them. But please, for goodness sakes, go back there, follow the law. And when I asked you in opening or in voir dire about using your common sense, what I meant was, in this case, you are presented with a confession. A confession that gives details that only this defendant could know. And if under any other circumstances, you would probably say it would be ludicrous not to say, well, gosh, I mean, the reaction is, well, the person confesses and they know the details, then they're guilty. But the defense, through bringing in so-called experts such as Mr. Offshay, have tried through smoke and mirrors to make it sound like a person that confesses to such a heinous crime and admits their involvement and gives you specific details of the involvement, that's indicative of someone who was forced or coerced to confess. I think when you go back and you apply your common sense and you do what's right and you think about the evidence in this case, you're going to know that what the evidence shows is that this defendant ran down Michael Moore, that this defendant was there, he was involved, and he's guilty of 3 counts of capital murder. You will have a verdict form that will be given to you, and you'll take back all these instructions. And that verdict form will say, we, the jury, find the defendant, Jessie MISSKELLEY, guilty of capital murder, count 1, involving Michael Moore, count 2, Stevie Branch, and count 3, Chris Byers. And the judge will tell you there's some lesser included offenses that he mentioned. It's not like you take all these options and spread them out on the table and say, well, gee, this looks like a good one. You start at the top. You start with capital murder. And if from the evidence you find beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant's guilty of capital murder in each of those counts, you check those boxes and the lesser included offenses are not even to be considered. And I trust that when you go back there, you'll carry this heavy responsibility, but you'll do what the law and the facts require, and that's return a verdict of guilty. Thank you very much.